Well, I think that both Mr. Vollenbroek and Ms. Bergma have got a point. A lot of people in the farming field feel that they're being unfairly targeted when other major polluters are not yet being targeted. So people like Schiphol Airport or Shell or Tata Steel. There are lots of companies that are major polluters, and there exists supposedly a list of 3,000 of these people, which I've been trying to get my hands on, but seems to be deeply sensitive. Equally, for decades, Dutch farmers have been emitting more than they're supposed to be emitting in terms of pollution. So it's not a new problem that they've been going over the so-called nitrogen limits, nitrogen compound limits. For years, they had an exemption from Europe to produce more manure than everybody else. And as Mr. Vollenbroek points out, we have an awful lot of livestock farming for quite a small country here. We've got 18 million people and we've got more than 100 million forms of livestock. So you're seeing what's going to be potentially a global problem very acutely now in the Netherlands, and the farmers feel very victimised. They maybe have a point that there's not yet a big debate about all kinds of parties that need to be taking their share of change to protect the environment.
Welcome back to Seed Time and Harvest. As you may know, there is a food crisis in the land. Are you prepared? 7 years of famine. Today, I'm going to show you how to preserve food for long term for a time of trouble. And it's very simple. All you will need is the item that you will be preserving, Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, and a sealer. Stay tuned to find out just how to do it. Perhaps the most important thing when you think of food storage, for long term that is, are oxygen absorbers. And what are these? These are simple little iron-filled packets that when placed in a sealed container, whether it be your Mylar bag, your mason jars, or your food bucket, they absorb 99% of the moisture and the air from that container. The remaining 1% is necessary. Why? Because that's nitrogen, and nitrogen helps to maintain the freshness of the food, and it also aids in the preservation of food. Oxygen absorbers, they come in various sizes depending on the project that you're working on. You can go as low as 50 cc. You can get a packet of 100 cc. This is the 200 cc. You can get the 400 cc, 500, all the way up to 2000 cc with the oxygen absorber. What's good to consider is the little pink packet that comes in your sealed pack when you purchase them. It should be pink. If it's blue, that means you need to throw that in the garbage. I like to purchase the smaller packets because this one has 500 cc oxygen absorbers with about 10. So 10 absorbers in this packet. Whereas this is a 500 cc oxygen absorber. However, inside this packet, I have 100. Now, I'm not going to store 100 things all at once. Unless this is my first time, I'm very excited and I want to preserve everything in my house. That's the only time I'll use this much. But if I go to the store and pick up small items and I want to preserve them long term, it's more convenient to use a smaller packed amount. So when you shop for your oxygen absorber, just make sure you look at the number that are packaged in each item. So you may want to buy 50 oxygen absorber, but you may get them that 50 is packaged in 5 or 10 or 20. The lower the amount, the better it is. Why? Because as soon as I open my packet, they will start to work in absorbing all the oxygen in the air. So working with a smaller amount is a lot more convenient and inexpensive than working with a bigger packet. It's easier to throw out 5 than to throw out 50. Next, we will go on to our Mylar bags. Now look at this. Doesn't it look really shiny and really pretty? Yes, it does. But this is back in 2017, if you can still see the date, when I just started food preservation. Then I would get my Mylar bag and it would be a simple aluminum bag. This one is 2.5 ml, and the ml that you'll see on your packet, that's the thickness of the bag. Now, it is aluminum, and understanding that aluminum is very toxic, I have moved away from this bag. But I want to save this. It's about 6 years now. I want to save this to see how it's going to be, the freshness of when I open it 10 years down the line, if the Lord tarries. Inside this bag, however, even though it's lined with aluminum, I have cornmeal, and the cornmeal is wrapped in a separate container, so it's not in contact with the aluminum. Again, I have moved away from this bag now to the more sturdy Mylar bags that's coated with a form of parchment. On the inside, there is a parchment lining, so my food is not in contact with the aluminum. These bags, they come in many different sizes. You can get a half pint, a 1 gallon, 2 gallon, all the way up to 5 gallons. And again, the size bag you need will depend on the project that you're working on. In addition to the size, the Mylar bags also come in different styles. As you can see, this is a plain Mylar bag with the opening and a regular bottom. They have made them with different styles now, where you have the ability for the Ziploc. With this, it also has the flex bottom that you can stand it up in your pantry or on a kitchen counter. I like these because if you have an item that you want to do for a quick store, you can always put it in here with your oxygen absorber. So you can seal it with the heat seal, open it, reuse as necessary, and you'll still maintain that freshness because it has the Ziploc. I have seen these in the pints. You can get them in the quart, the 2 quarts, and the gallon. However, I have not seen them in the 5 gallon size. However, I personally would not want to use a Ziploc for the 5 gallon because there's no way I'm going to use 5 gallon of one thing at a time. So I would go back to the regular 5 gallon bag, heat seal, and store for long-term use. In addition to storing food with the Mylar bags, I have also stored food in the mason jar. This is a mason jar I have with pearl couscous, and what I do is just fill up the jar with my couscous, and then I add the oxygen absorber. It does very good at sealing inside the jar, and how I know that it is sealed, I will press the top and it will flex. Also, if I try to open this jar, I will get some resistance because of the oxygen builds up that pressure inside the jar. This will also keep my contents in the jar fresh for a long time. They will not be rancid when you open, like you have beans stored for a long time and they do get that rancid smell. I will not have that. If you have a lot of jars and a lot of space, it would be a good way to put some oxygen absorbers in your jars as you fill them with food. What I would prefer and I would suggest is, instead of using the clear jars, try to go with the darker jars, because when you store food, you also have to consider the light. Light will take away the color from the food. If you have the darker jars, then that would be best, because not only do you have that freshness maintained, but you also have the appearance also maintained. Now that we've looked at Mylar bags, we have looked at our mason jars. What would you store for long term? Well, you can't put sugar in a mason jar or a Mylar bag and expect to store for 25 years. No. Anything that has greater than 10% moisture cannot be stored for long term. That doesn't mean you can't store it for a year or two, but not for 25 years. Things that has moisture content 10% or more would of course be your sugar. You can't store your raisins. You can put the nuts and seeds in the Mylar bags, but not for extremely long preservation, because the oil will interact with the oxygen absorbers and it will lose its freshness, it will lose its quality, and you may get botulism if you consume it. So it's very important to date and label your items as you preserve them, so you know how long you're storing. And just to consider, you'll always be eating, you'll always be buying stuff. You have a working pantry, you have your dates, your items all labeled. When you buy something, as you see a sale, I don't pass up a sale, neither should you. So don't say, oh, I have 50 pounds of oats in the pantry and now I can get a bag for $5. I'm just gonna avoid it. No, pick up that bag, go home, store it, and replace it with what you already have stored. So you can have a working pantry so that nothing will sit there for an extremely long period and go to waste. Another point to consider is that oftentimes we buy things that already come in Mylar bag, and it's very convenient if you have small bags available to go ahead and reseal them. As you can see, this is a big bag of herb. I bought a 1 pound bag. I didn't realize it was going to be so much, but there's no way I'm going to get through this much tea all at once. Now, what do? I already ripped my seal and the zipper is right there. Now I can cut it down and I can reseal it, but even more convenient is having the half-pint bags, because I can separate this bag of tea into smaller bags and have those readily available, dated, stored, so that when I need a small packet of tea, I can go ahead and make my tea, so I don't have to keep cutting and sealing. Cutting and sealing is very convenient to have these handy, readily available for when you run into situations where you have so much and you're not sure what to do with all that at one point, because sealing it does also preserve your herbs and your spices as well. Here we have a 50-pound bag of oats. My family, we love oatmeal, and once a year I will pick up a 50-pound bag and that will serve me for the entire year. Now, what am I going to do with the whole 50 pounds? Just let it sit in my kitchen, in the pantry, so that bugs can enjoy what's in my bag? No, I'm going to break it down, put it in smaller containers so that it's easily accessible, it's more readily available, while the rest are in a safe area being stored for when I'm ready to use it. I'm going to show you just how to do that. Once you have your item that you're going to preserve, then you're going to get your Mylar bag and determine how many oxygen absorbers you're going to need. Now, do not get excited. I know it is exciting, but don't get too excited, okay? Because in this packet I have 10 cc oxygen absorbers, and so I just remember, once I open my packet, what happens? They're going to start absorbing oxygen right away. And I don't want to ruin my absorbers. So just do a few at a time, okay? I'm going to start with 3, preserve them. And what I like to do with my packets so that they will maintain their ability to absorb oxygen is I have a jar here with rice, okay? Initially, I used to use an empty container to store my absorbers in. Then I'm like, why are they not working? Well, look at the amount of air space in these containers. Which one has less? Of course, the one with the rice. It would be much more convenient to put rice in your jar first and then put your leftover absorbers in your jar, as they will have less oxygen to absorb and they'll be more likely to work when you use them for sealing. The first step is to fill my container. And of course, I'm going to be storing some oatmeal. So I have a few scoops of oatmeal. The next thing I want to determine is the head space. The amount of oxygen absorber I will need is based on the volume of the food and then the volume of air that is within the bag. I want to make sure I have enough space in this bag so that I can seal, whether with a clothes iron if I don't have a flat iron, or a flat iron if I have one. The next step is to make sure my flat iron is plugged in and ready to go. It's hot and ready to use. Once I have this available, then I'm going to open my oxygen absorbers, and just remember, they have to be used or stored right away, okay? Again, I'm using the 400 cc oxygen absorber, and here is a pink tablet. If this is blue, then it's not good. Also, it can be pink if only one absorber in this bag is working. So it's one thing you can do to check is when you open this packet, Yeah, it's pink, which you're hoping that it's good, but don't get too excited. Feel it to make sure that you can feel the iron crystals. If you can feel the iron crystals and it feels warm to the touch, then you know it's good. So I'm gonna be very quick. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open this packet. I only need 3. Before I put my 3 in my bag, I'm going to put 7 in this jar and close it, okay, to make sure that they don't absorb more oxygen than necessary. And then the remaining 3, I'm going to put them as far in my bag with the food as I possibly can, okay? And it will turn blue shortly after. So just put those in there, seal them. They won't absorb too much oxygen, and it already feels warm, and I can feel the iron crystals, so I know that they're good. This step, you have to go very quickly because you don't want it to absorb more air than necessary, okay? Or more moisture than necessary. Make sure again you have sufficient head space, and then you're going to crimp your bags. Heat seal them. Make sure you go all the way with the seal, as wide as you can. I'm going to do that for the 3 bags. And this is perhaps the fastest step that you have to go through to maintain the functionality of the oxygen absorbers. Because again, these are 400 cc absorbers in a 1 gallon Mylar bag. Yes, you can go up to 500, but for oatmeal, the required amount is 300, so I did go 100 cc higher. Just remember, when you go to cook your oatmeal, take out the absorber before you throw your oats in your pot. Okay, because those are not edible. They cannot be eaten. So don't forget to take out the packets before you prepare your oats. The next step after sealing is to allow the oxygen absorber to completely absorb all the oxygen in your Mylar bag. This takes about 4 hours. Starts working immediately, but it will take about 4 hours. How do you know when it's done? Well, I like to preserve my food overnight. So I will get everything ready, do it that evening, and just let them lay flat on the floor or on a table overnight. And the next day, I check to make sure that my bags are as hard as a rock. If it's as hard as a rock, then it worked. You did it. Good job. High five. You sealed your first food for your 7 years of famine. All right. So if it's as hard as a rock, it's ready to be stored. But, oh man, what happened? I did this one and it feels just as how it did when I first put it in the bag. I'm sorry. Maybe check your bag to see if you have a puncture hole or the oxygen absorber that you used is not good. Look at this tablet. I lost it, but it's already blue. If this happened, don't get discouraged. What you'll do is you just start with a fresh batch and you just open the contents, pour it in a new bag, and then you're going to get resealed. This bag is 5 ml thick, and I understand why my bag that was once sealed is now has oxygen, because there is a puncture hole in it. A good way to store these is to use a tote bin. You can use them, put them in a tote bin, or you can pack them in the 5-gallon bucket for added security. And again, I just want to show you that the contents in the indicator for the oxygen absorber, it changed color, so that means it has absorbed all the oxygen that it can. Okay, so it's that simple. Again, you preserve your food. I can feel the absorber in the bag. It feels warm. So it is working. 4 hours later, my bag is going to be rid of all the oxygen up all the moisture. And again, if there is no oxygen, then the bugs won't be able to survive. And so I have a better chance of maintaining freshness over my food, in my food, for at least 25 years. All right, we have our bag sealed. We have it labeled. Remember, very, very important, date and label your item, because can you imagine packing 50 bags and have no clue what's in your bag? Don't do that. So we have our items labeled. We have it dated so we know how long it will store for. Now we have a lot of oats left over. We're going to store that in our 5-gallon bag in the 5-gallon bucket. Why I added the bucket is for added security. Yes, the Mylar bags is 5 ml thick, but it's not puncture resistant. Okay, so adding it in the bucket will add a little more security. Now, food grade buckets can be expensive. Okay, can be very, very expensive. However, if you have a grocery store near you, Publix, Kroger, Walmart, wherever they have a deli section, just make friends with the deli clerk, right? They get their items in, or the bakery clerk, even better. They get their food in food grade buckets, so you can collect the buckets. You can all get them in 5-gallon and also the 2-gallon size, whichever is more convenient for you. And they just store better because you can stack them up, you can put them away. Okay, so the next process is to put in our oxygen absorber. Remember, the more dense your food, the less oxygen absorbers you're gonna need. Because we have oats in this bag, we will only need about a 1000 cc oxygen absorber. If you're doing spaghetti or beans, you're going to do 2000 cc oxygen absorber. We have some left over from what we stored our smaller packets earlier. So I'm just gonna take out 4. I'm gonna take out 4 of these absorbers, and I'm gonna put them in as far in as I possibly can, because I don't want them to be ruined as I'm heat sealing either. And then I'm gonna close my bin and just seal it as I did the smaller bag. You can try to compress out as much of the air as you possibly can to get ready for sealing. Okay? Again, I have my flat iron handy. If you don't have a flat iron, you can use a clothes iron or whatever you have available. I just don't like to do this with the food saver because it gets so hot that it may burst the plastic. So I find the clothes iron or the flat iron works best. So you're just gonna give it a really good seal, okay? You don't want any air going in, no bugs going in. So you make a nice broad seal. It's going to compress, and then you'll just close it. You can seal it with the ring sealer or just with the lid that it comes with. And there we have it. A bucket all sealed. We have a label attached. We have the date there, and we can stack up as many 5-gallon buckets in your root cellar, your food pantry, or wherever you have space. The beauty about food storage in Mylar bag is you can put them anywhere. You can put them all over your house, and nobody has to know that you have food stored in that bin. Whether, again, tote bins, boxes, whatever sealed container that will add some added security, because again, they are bags, they will tear. So if you provide them a good, secure spot, they will last for a long time. And you have been warned. Food storage, a crisis is coming. Get your Mylar bags, your buckets, mason jars, or your oxygen absorbers to be ready for a time when buying and selling will be a very difficult one. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you get yourself prepared. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment in the section below. And thank you for joining us on Seed Time and Harvest. Bye. Happy planting. Happy planting. Happy preserving.